Good evening, everyone, and welcome to An Evening with Senator Moore. I'm Joe Coggins, and I'll be your host tonight, as I am every night. And with us, of course, is our good senator. Senator, how are you?
Wonderful, and how are you, Joe?
Good. And you might want to comment a little bit on old Betsy here.
Well, if you want to move your
I will.
envelope there. This is, thanks to Frank Galati with the Millbury Historical Society. This is the voting box used here in Millbury for over 50 years. It was used until recently when the more updated versions were purchased by the town. So this is what I think you were using for many. I was trying to think of a good age-related joke, but
Well,
I just can't.
I've got one, so I'm way
Okay,
ahead of
okay.
you. But I had
All right.
I had a heads up before you got here. This box was initially put into use the year Mike was born,
Oh, really?
1920. Okay, so, and the sad thing about it isn't sad; it's a piece of history.
No, it is. Yeah, and
But
and thank you to the Historical Society for.
Oh. But I can remember using these. You know, when I came to Millbury and voted. And,
Now I know I use these because I started voting back in 1980. So
you use this
yeah,
too.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
but I
used it
don't
too.
really remember.
You know,
So.
and they were dependable. I can remember the town clerk at the time, Dave Matson, and then Franny Gauthier and Debbie Plan, and now our present town clerk, where they used to take the hand crank and do whatever they did here on the side, and
Now, were recounts easier or harder at that time?
well, I think recounts were a little more difficult because these ballots didn't count the votes.
Okay.
They just counted the number of ballots. I think they went.
Oh,
into
okay, that's
them.
right. Yeah.
Okay. So I think
So now what
was
would-
cumbersome and longer.
So how were the ballots marked at that point?
I believe when I came to Millbury in 1967, I believe you marked an X,
Okay.
okay, and which was the traditional way of voting.
All right.
And then after you voted, you would stick it in the box here, and they would push it through, and it was until they were ready to count at the end of the day.
Okay.
They would stay in the box. I guess today's boxes, and I don't mean to simplify it, but it is simple. In retrospect, they count the number of ballots, and
Yep.
I guess they do other magical things with the new ballot boxes that obviously the technology wasn't available at the time.
Yep.
So this, I guess, is going to be on display at the Millbury Historical Society, located in on the third floor of the Asa Waters Mansion. I believe it's the third floor.
Yeah.
And there's some great stuff to see.
No, there really is.
There are many, many, many things to see over there that the Historical Society has managed to acquire over the years. So if you get an opportunity to go to it.
And I know they're always looking for people
Go to
to join the Historical Society.
Right.
So anyone interested in becoming a member, it's a great organization. And again, they have a lot of obviously history there.
Right.
But
Very
I know they
inexpensive.
can use the financial support also.
Yeah,
So,
and very inexpensive. In fact, I don't think they've raised the rates
I think it's $10
forever. Yeah, it's some ridiculous low cost. Frank is very passionate, and the rest of his people that serve with him, but I see Frank the most, and I know Frank is very passionate about the work that has been done and is being done over there. So he puts his heart and soul into it, and that's what makes these things work.
It is. It's all about volunteers.
Right, it's all about volunteerism.
Yep.
You know, I mean, I served with a bunch of volunteers in the Lions Club, and those women and men, and they work very hard. Everybody,
Yep.
and couldn't do the things that we do without volunteers. And I'm same with the Historical Society or any other groups here in the town of Millbury.
No, it is. But you know, it's also nice to preserve different artifacts from history, and just so when you're trying to remember and you're explaining to your kids or to someone else about the town and all the history surrounding it, it's nice to be able to.
In my case, my great-grandchildren. Go ahead, say it. I know you're dying to say it. Say it. You can say it. You've been prior to us starting the taping of the show. You've been picking on me about my
No,
age.
not at all. I mean, I was studying the Stone Age with my daughter the other night.
And I came to mind, right? But we have, and Kevin did a nice job putting this together, as tonight's show depicts
Yep.
different elections in different eras. And this still is a great country as far as voting goes.
No, it is.
And I think we're very fortunate, and that's why I can't stress enough that, especially in town elections where it affects you the most, please get out and vote.
Well, it is funny though, if you look at between the federal elections and the state, and then the municipal town elections,
Right.
the one of the elections that has the biggest impact on your day-to-day lives are your town elections.
Right.
But it has the lowest voter turnout.
Right. I've always argued that point.
Yeah.
I've always made an issue about it. I think we all have.
Yeah.
At one point, I know you've commented on it a number of times, and that was always my thing on the Board of Selectmen. I even went as far, they took me literally in 2010, but I used to go say, even if you're not going to vote for me, get out and vote.
Yeah.
And I still believe that, all kidding aside. I do believe that whether you're going to vote for me or whoever, you should get out and exercise that right.
Yeah.
People die in other countries to do what we take for granted, you know.
You know, I was recently at a conference, and it was talking about civic engagement, and we were putting a package together, or trying to promote people coming out and vote and civic engagement, getting back involved with your community.
Right.
And we went back, I think, over 100 years to the voting, and you know, we think that today on the federal elections that we don't have a very high turnout, but traditionally, going back over this period of time, getting 50 to 60% voter turnout was actually high. You know,
I don't think I've ever seen, even with ballot questions on the local elections, I don't think I've ever seen that many people come out.
I'm talking the federal.
Oh, the federal. Oh, yeah, federal. Yeah, 50, 60% is good.
Yeah.
But I think that recently, I would say in the last 20 years, you'd probably know better than me, but I think it's exceeded that even. I think it's gone higher than that.
On what's now on
presidential elections.
Well, I think it depends on the community. I was with someone about 2 weeks ago that they actually had some stats on the communities that have the highest voting percentage, and I believe it was Revere for the federal or national elections. I think they have roughly about a 95% voter turnout.
Wow.
And Lexington, I think, was right around 90, 91. Actually, the town of Auburn, they averaged about 89%.
Really?
Yeah.
I forgot what ours was, but I think we were up there in the high 70s, low 80s.
Yeah, he actually didn't
I'll
have.
have to ask Jane.
Yeah, he actually didn't have Millbury, because I was actually interested in trying to find out, and he didn't have that.
Jane would know. She's very knowledgeable. And next time I see her, I'm going to ask that question, and on a later show, I'll give you the answer.
That would be nice. Thank you.
For once, you may learn something from me.
Joe, there's always something I'm learning.
I bet there is. Well, having said that, and
Again, I just want to thank Frank Galati and the Historical Society for
absolutely
bringing this down here today.
Yeah, and we're glad to promote it on the show.
Yep.
And promote the Millbury Historical Society, which does, like Mike said, the senator said, they do some fine work, and they definitely can use your financial support.
Yes.
It's not a lot of money that they ask for, and they make that money go a long way.
No, they do.
Really do. They make that money go a long way. And with Frank being an accountant, I can see accountants have a tendency to make money go like you did when you were on the board of selectmen. I was amazed at how far you could stretch a dollar.
What was the comment you made once about getting something from a stone? A penny from a stone or something?
Yeah, you know, I did have a comment of, I'd love to go back in the archives of your early days as selectman, and some of the things that, I mean, you just were not going to spend any money. I mean, I think you wanted to hire a town manager for minimum wage out of college or something like that. I think that conversation come up. I don't want to put words in your mouth,
No,
Mike.
that's fine.
But you know, as I look back at it, it was pretty funny.
Oh, it was, yeah.
You know, I mean, obviously, both of us. I mean, you mature politically when you realize that some of the things, as much as you would want to do them, you really can't.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it just isn't economically sound or practical. Or realistic.
You have limited resources. You got to try to live within those resources.
Yeah, I often wondered what it would have been like to have a town manager who was making $6 an hour back then.
Imagine if I had ever been town manager.
I'd rather not think about that. But yeah,
government really would have gotten smaller.
But I'll tell you, some of the, you know, you could write a book.
Yeah.
In fact, you especially, when you're done with your political career, you should think about that, because you ran for selectman because I prodded you, because I kept saying that.
You kept reaching out to people,
People saying Mike Moore's running for selectman. You had no intention of running for selectman at the time.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you decided, well, maybe I will.
Joe put it out there.
Yeah.
People are approaching me.
Yeah, so.
So we can all blame you for this.
Yeah,
right now.
we can. And actually, we're very fortunate to have you down in Boston.
Thank you, and thank you for.
Oh, listen, I mean, I'm the kind of guy that tells people what lottery ticket to buy, and then they win. You know, I mean, I did that once.
Did you really?
Oh, I've done it more than once. When OTB was, you know, in the center of town, one of the kids that worked there, somebody had given him a large tip because they had hit on the lottery. And so he wanted to know, he said, oh, gee, I think it was $10 or $20 or whatever it was. He says, what ticket? He said, Joe, what tickets do you think I should buy? Now, mind you, I'm sitting at the counter drinking coffee, buying scratch tickets myself. And I said, well, why don't you buy whatever the scratch ticket was? Then the kid buy the scratch ticket and win $500. I mean, how more generous could I be?
And I bet he bought you breakfast.
I bet you he didn't.
Okay.
I think he barely said thank you.
Okay.
Actually,
Okay.
and he's a great kid, he didn't want to tell me.
Oh, why did you want to tell
Well,
you?
because there I am sitting there scratching, and then I tell him, well, buy one of whatever the ticket was at the time. And then he goes ahead and buys it and scratches it and wins $500. How am I doing? I won nothing. You know, so I said, well, one thing I can do is I can help people make money. You know, you got to understand, this kid was just old enough to buy
Buy a lottery ticket.
buy lottery tickets. So, I mean, it wasn't something he did all the time. But, in fact, you know who it was? I'll tell you who it was. It was the O'Brien, Richie and O'Brien's son.
Oh, really? Okay.
He worked there, and it was him. I believe. Yeah, it was him that hit the lottery ticket. John O'Brien, because of my
Advice.
guidance. Yeah. So anytime you need money,
Talk to you?
talk to me,
Okay. So
because I've done this on more than one occasion.
So you're going to show me which scratch ticket to buy and
Yeah.
which...
I think the best one, while we're talking about this, and we're talking
Oh,
Bobby
actually,
Carrigan.
Actually, no, I'm not just saying something, but
No.
you the Blackstone Valley Chamber of Commerce,
Yeah.
the breakfast is coming up. It's either this month or next month. They're actually having Steve Grossman come and speak at that. So I don't know if there's anyone interested in that. Actually, Suzanne Bump is actually coming to I think it's next week. So they usually have their breakfast out in Sutton at Pleasant Valley. But that's, you know, if there's any questions, I ran into the auditor today, and she was talking about all the reforms that we had made with the EBT cards and the criminal penalties and some of the investigations and some of the things that they've been working on. So she's going to be coming to talk about what's going on in the auditor's office, and then the treasurer Grossman will be coming. I think it's the following month. He's coming to speak to the Blackstone Valley Chamber.
But that should be interesting.
Yeah. So, getting back to your auditor.
Yeah, I got to get
Bob
back
Carrigan.
to Bobby Carrigan. Great guy.
Yep.
Yeah, you know him.
Yeah.
And Bobby's a great guy. Well, anyways, Bobby, the generous person that he is, always used to buy scratch tickets for presents for his members of his certain members of his family. Well, this is the gospel truth. One year, he bought a variety of scratch tickets and gave them to different relatives. One relative won $5,000. Another relative won, I think, $2,000 or $1,000. All in the same year, and $500, and somebody else won $500. He gave away 3 major winners in the lottery, and I'm saying, what a nice guy. You know, I said, gee, Bob, I told him, I said, I wish I was related to you. I don't think he does that anymore, you know, because what are the odds?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, he just beat himself out of ever hoping to win any kind of money out of a scratch ticket by doing that. But I thought that, well, I suppose it wasn't funny, so I won't say it's funny, Bob, but it was funny. You know. Want to say happy anniversary to our good friends and
Yes.
our chief of security and his wife, the producer of the show.
48 years.
48 years for the Sullivans, Bob and Rita. Happy anniversary, Bob and Rita. And you know what? The dedication that these people have to this show, Mike, your show, An Evening with Senator Moore, to spend their 48-year anniversary to be here for the taping of this show, just shows you what classy people we have that we surround ourselves with on this show.
I agree. Yep.
You know,
Just
so
how nice they are.
thank you
Yep.
for being here. And thank you for all that you do, and again, happy anniversary. Well, a girl approached me, and that doesn't happen too often, folks. A girl approached me that I know, and she came up to me and says, I was watching you and the senator. She says, the show the other night. Says the show was very good. But she says, I wasn't all that impressed, she says, with you in your Milbury sweatshirt interviewing the senator. And I tried to explain to her that that was the theme of the program, the fall show where you dress in sweatshirts. And I thought wearing a Milbury sweatshirt would have been a lot more appropriate than Donald Duck or Goofy or some of the other ones I got. Our audience out there. And anyways, she thought that she didn't realize that we planned, or it is planned for us, what we're going to wear on each show. So yep. I thought that was funny when she commented on my, on my shirt. So, but I did explain to her, and then she understood what was going on. A lot of things go on, and people actually, you know how we tell people at the end of the show how to get a hold of you, or they can get a hold of me, and I'll get a hold of you. I actually had a lot of those that I referred to Shelley, your chief of staff, since the last show.
Oh, okay.
And I think I even related a couple to you because they probably was something that you had to deal with, having been geared toward the election more than your duties as senator. Although I guess running for re-election is part of your duties as.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's a lot of it's crossing paths.
I certainly would still like to see that job be 4 years and not 2.
Yeah, no,
mainly because I'm getting old now, and it's every time we get into these elections where we have whether we have an opponent or not, you're out there. I mean, that's just the way you are, and that's a good way to be.
Yeah, no,
And, but now I'm getting tired, Mike. You know.
No, but it is a good way to stay in contact with people.
Yeah,
to
it is.
find out what their issues are.
It is. You don't want to
Yeah.
lose. What happens a lot is that people in this business, they lose contact with their workers, their hardcore people, the people that they depend on. Talking about volunteers like we were
Yeah.
earlier, and for the most part, these people volunteer their time, and you lose contact with them. You kind of weaken your machine a little bit. So you're right.
People
it is a
drift
good
away
way
and
to
then,
stay
yeah.
in contact, but I still would like to see it at least 3. 3
Well,
years.
that'd be- if you do think back, a selectman, think about it, selectmen are 3 years.
Yeah.
City councilors in Worcester are 2 years, but you
That's a
would-
blessing. So,
But with technology today, I mean, you can get so much more done in 3 years, and there's so much more you got to address. You know, if we were really doing campaign financing reform, a good way I think to take a lot of money out of politics would be to extend the term a little bit, to instead of 2 years to 3 years, because there's not always that need to be out there raising money to pay for ads, to pay for things. I mean,
because basically, you know, the way it's set up, you're working 1 year at the job, and then the other year you're out campaigning, and that really isn't.
yeah.
And I don't think people want it that way. If they think 4 years is too long, and I don't, because it goes by fast. I mean,
Oh, it does.
I'm already 7, 8 months into my job as assessor. I just got elected last April,
Yep.
and in fact, I'm going to school at my age, going back to school, starting the 23rd of October. I go to school for. You have to, by law now, if you're elected
Yep.
or appointed to the Board of Assessors, you have to go to school, and then you have to take a test.
Okay.
So I'm bringing an apple to the teacher the first night.
Is it like the test that we had, that the Ethics Commission structured for public employees, where you can't fail the test, they make you read?
I don't know if I can fail. I don't think it's quite geared that way, because they say you got to score a 70. You got to score 70
Okay.
on this test.
Right.
It's an online test, which means
that's good.
obviously it's an open book test, because I would say if you flunk an online test, you have to be pretty dumb. I don't know any other way to say it, because you got all the time in the world. You got your notes. I got this book. Sandy, the town assessor, made up this book that's about this thick, with everything we're going to cover over the 6 weeks that we're going to school. And if I absorb all that,
6 weeks?
well, once a week for 6
Okay.
weeks. I'm just trying to make it sound better, you know.
So 6 classes.
6 classes, yeah. But
But
that's still
for
it's
four-
three-
4
they're
hours
three-
a class, though.
Having talked to other people, well, talking to the 2 members of the board that I serve with, they told me that they stick with it's 4 to 7 is our classes, and they keep you there till 7 o'clock. I mean, there's no, you know, you walk in at 4 and at 5 o'clock you're out the door. There isn't any of that. It's solid.
So we can expect some new innovative tax policies coming out of the Board of Assessors.
I will come out of there a scary walking book of knowledge. And now it's been on a wing and a prayer. But once I come out of there, I'm sure I'll be a lot smarter, you know. And but I wanted to. I this, by the way, you have 2 years after you're elected to go to school. This is the first class that the
That
state
they've had,
has
yeah.
offered. So
Yeah, I know we were,
I
we
went-
were
right.
trying to arrange something to have it.
Right,
out in
but they
Millbrae.
only run 2 a year. And this one is in Sturbridge, and I jumped on that because probably the next one will be down the Cape or something. And I did say that I would go as quickly as I could, and so that's a campaign promise that I obviously am keeping, because it's the first one they've offered.
Yep.
So, but I'm glad it's in Sturbridge, because the thought of driving all the way to, I think Jude told me he had to go some distance for his class. George Valerie, who's also on the Board of Assessors, he got lucky. It was in Grafton.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that was very nice. You know, I forgot where Jude said his was, but he traveled. Sturbridge is about a half an hour. I can live with that.
Yeah.
You know, and it's at the senior center.
Oh, that's nice. Good.
So, and you can bring goodies with you. So I'll have my goodie bag as long as I can eat for those 3 hours. It's not a big deal. It's when I have to sit there and not have food and drink.
You just have to maintain your nutrition.
Absolutely, I have to maintain my strength. The tough part's going to be staying awake.
The coffee? You don't drink coffee?
Oh
or?
yeah, I drink a ton
Okay.
of coffee, but the coffee doesn't keep me awake, believe it or not.
Oh, really? Okay.
I mean, I'll sit like after the taping. I'll leave here, and at some point when I go home, I'll shoot at the Dunkin' Donuts and get a coffee. And if anything, it'd keep you awake. Dunkin' Donuts coffee you would think.
Well, actually, I think Starbucks is a little. I actually like the flavor of Dunkin' Donuts coffee better, but Starbucks is I think a little stronger.
Yeah, but I can't go to Freddie Mac and get any more money to buy Starbucks coffee to refinance my house. I mean, really, $4.50 for a cup
No, it
of
is.
coffee?
Yeah. No, it is
I
expensive.
mean, no coffee's worth that, Mike. Sorry, but I'm good.
Oh, no, I'm a.
Are you a Starbucks?
No.
No?
No.
I can't believe I can't believe they're thriving and do well.
Actually, about a year ago, we were out in Seattle, and Seattle, and it's no Dunkin' Donuts. Starbucks is the predominant
Right.
coffee shop out there.
Speaking of that, when my wife and I were on our honeymoon, we went to Vegas. And my wife has been to Vegas a million times, but I had never been, so that's why we picked Vegas to go on a honeymoon. Now, like I said, she's been there no less than 20, 30 times in her lifetime. I love Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I'll kill for Dunkin' Donuts coffee. You know that.
Yeah.
All right. We're in Vegas, and we get up one morning, and she said, well, let's go get a cup of coffee at Dunkin's. And she said, I know there's one right down the street here, in Vegas on the Strip. So I said, okay. So we're walking, and we're walking. I don't see no Dunkin' Donuts. And finally, there's a cop directing traffic, and I stop, and I says to the cop, I says, hey, can you tell me where I'll find the Dunkin' Donuts? And he looks at me, and he says, what's a Dunkin' Donut? I says, coffee shop. He said, and that's the name of it, Dunkin' Donuts? I says, yeah. He said, we don't have any of those here. Now, mind you, I just walked 2 miles. Okay.
So what's the chain that they have?
They don't. They have. They don't have it. So what they have is, or at the time, what they had was each hotel had their own gourmet coffee, and it was awful, Mike. I can remember when we got to the airport in Boston, when we landed in Logan.
Yeah.
I ran to Dunkin' Donuts because I had been 6 days without a Dunkin' Donut. I mean, talk about withdrawal. It was like coming down from heroin, I had to get my Dunkin' Donut coffee. But the point is, I can't believe my wife had been here 30 times, and she didn't
know
she
that.
insisted there was Dunkin' Donuts there.
So does that mean now that when the new Dunkin' Donuts is constructed in Millbury, that we'll be finding you there every morning?
Actually, I'm going to use a different philosophy. It's the same owner, so he'll still get my money. I figure everybody's going to go to that one, so I'll continue to go to the one on 146, and I won't have to wait in line, because the lines right now are atrocious.
Yeah.
And I anticipate the one in Millbury Center at McLaughlin's station there is going to be very busy.
Yep.
Whereas the one on 146, a lot of that business will
Transition to the new store.
transition to the new store. And like I say, it's the same owner.
Okay.
So, but I'll probably stick with the one on 146.
Actually, my son and I go there in the morning. When I can have the opportunity to drive him to school,
Yeah.
we'll stop there, get a coffee. He gets a fruit drink, and then off to school.
I was going to say, I'm sure the teachers would appreciate you giving this kid caffeine before he goes to school.
Oh, God, no.
That could be a real career shortener there, Mike.
Yes, it would.
But, well, we've had fun here tonight. It was kind of light.
Yeah, no, it's good to have a light show.
Every once in a while, you got to do this.
And actually, we should, before we forget, to the kids. Have a happy Halloween.
Yes, and a safe Halloween.
Yes. Yep.
A safe Halloween because we haven't. I don't think we're turning the clocks back until after Halloween this year.
Oh God.
I think it's the first week or
I
the
had forgotten
second
about
week of
that.
November or something like. I don't know. I'm all confused with that. That's another piece of legislation you need to push through. We got to
Stop that?
stop that. Stop it.
Okay.
I hate it. You know, let it fall the way it falls, all year. You know, around the clock.
Actually, I forgot who it was. I met a legislator. I think he was from, might have been from Arizona, and they were saying that they don't turn the clocks. They just.
There are some. I think the central part of the country, or the Midwest, doesn't change their clocks. And actually, there was talk. Not to do that. They were going to do away with daylight savings time, where Eastern said, we can do this next month.
Yeah.
What do you think? We'll
Yeah,
do
that's
this
fine.
next
Yeah.
month.
Yeah.
The script is out this month. We're going to, because we don't have that much time left in the show, believe it or not. And I don't know what happened. I mean, I understand why they do it, because the kids in the school bus, and obviously I don't want to see, we don't want to see our kids get hit by a car or anything like that. And some people say, well, you know, when I walked this way, I love this, you know, when I was a kid, my mother used to say this, when I was a kid, I used to walk 5 miles to school. Yeah, Ma, and there was a car every 20 minutes,
Yep.
you know?
Well, and that's actually, you know, it's funny because now I live a quarter mile maybe from where I grew up.
Yeah.
And we used to walk
Right,
to Providence Street School.
right.
And looking at the traffic now for when my son or daughter gets on the
You
bus.
couldn't do it.
No way.
No, you couldn't do it.
I would be scared to death just knowing that they would be walking down that street.
I'm scared that that's just driving it, never mind
Yeah.
walking it. No, you're right. You're absolutely correct. But I used to love that. My mother said, well, we used to go when the snow was up to our waist. Yeah, and that was fine back then. I can remember calling off school back then was
Very seldom.
very, very seldom, no matter how much snow
Yeah.
you had. And number one, you didn't. The reason school is called off today because of the buses.
Right.
Back then, it was safe to walk in the snow as a kid to school because there wasn't that many cars. Now, as you had pointed out, it would be literally impossible to do that.
The volume of traffic and also the speed that they're going. I know
Right.
on Grafton Street, it's amazing how fast the cars go.
Yeah, it is, and it is scary, but it's a sign of the times.
Yeah.
You know.
With the increase in population, commercial activity, you're going to bring more people and more traffic.
Yeah, and you
So
know,
I have a question for you now.
go ahead.
What did you think of the debate the other night? The second debate between
The second
the
debate.
president and
Okay,
former Governor Romney.
I would say that they both held their own well.
Yep.
Looking at it objectively, okay, even though obviously I made up my mind where I'm going.
Oh, you're not part of that 4% that's undecided?
No.
Okay.
I've been not undecided for a while, like 2 years ago when they started campaigning. But anyways,
So you've kept an open mind?
I did.
Okay.
Like I always did. All right. But I do, in all due respect, I think they both held their own.
Yeah.
They both got their shots in. They both, like, a couple of times, I thought they were going to come to blows, actually. And I was waiting for the Secret Service to come running out and getting between the two of them. But I thought it was a good debate. I was a little disappointed. I think they both missed the boat on capitalizing on something one or the other said.
Yep.
And they could have really gone after him and gone for the jugular, and they didn't. Both of them, neither one.
Well, I think they're both trying to get so much of their own information they want to put out that sometimes you have to pick and choose
Well, pick your
priority.
war, I
Right,
suppose.
pick your battle. So
But and of course, you know, sitting home watching it from your easy chair is a lot easier than being on stage.
yeah, I mean, because as you know, your mind gets going a certain direction.
Exactly.
And it's hard to switch directions. I thought it was interesting. I thought they both did a good job.
Yeah,
It was a lot better than the first debate that they had.
Well, the first debate I thought was good. I was a little surprised at the president that he did have kind of a lackadaisical attitude, and that's not my words. It's
Yeah, no.
the words of the liberal press, even his own people. Why are you looking?
His people of the liberal press.
Well, yeah, his people, the liberal press, the mainstream press.
Okay, mainstream
Okay.
media.
Yeah, mainstream media, that's it. I always enjoy these debates, no matter who they are.
You know what I always find interesting?
What?
You know, when I was younger, I don't know if I enjoyed it as much, but now I really like listening to the all the analysts later. And
Oh, yeah,
for
I
the
love
fact
that.
checking.
I love that.
Because you'll hear from, and again, from both sides, but this is the how it went down. This is the truth, and so it's always interesting to see how that.
Actually, they point out, you know, when they, like last night, I watched that, as I'm sure you did,
Yep.
and I'm saying, you know, gee, he makes a good point, regardless which one it was about. If I was an undecided voter, and if I had to make up my mind from last night's debate, I think I would fall into that 33% that would still be undecided.
Okay.
I don't think that debate either hurt or helped either one of them.
But again, I think watching the debates, we're hearing the same information that we've heard over the last year and a half.
Mm.
It's just now put in a different format, and it's now we're just watching. I hate to say it, but both candidates perform for us. And I guess people's opinions now are going to be judged on which performance appeals to them. Because the facts are the same. We've been hearing it. We've been hearing about the $5 trillion tax cut. We've been hearing about the president's proposals that he wants to do. So it's really the same information that's just been coming out for the last year.
Yeah, they're recycling it,
Yeah,
that's all.
so-
And coming up with a new inventive way to present it.
I think the only ones that are varying now is the Brown-Warren. I mean, because we're now, I think their issues are coming to light now or being promoted.
To be honest with you, one more debate with them, and I think they got one more.
Do they?
I'll
Okay.
be October 30th, I think it is.
Yes, you're right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm going to be suicidal if I have to listen to their rhetoric about each other. I'm disappointed that neither candidate has come out and said what they're going to do without slamming the other one.
Well, this is actually I've actually heard a lot of people talk about this election compared to this election cycle, even compared to the last one, criticizing that there is so much more negativity in the whole process, in the commercials, and so much more money that's being thrown into the campaigns. I think, and again, this all really goes back to, I think you've got this, what is it, the Citizens United case decision that came down, that you've got all these groups now that are pouring money into it that, they're not associated with the campaigns, but they are, and they're just putting these commercials out that just ripping down the other person. And again, it's like you're saying, it's not what I'm going to do to make life better, it's why this person's bad.
Right, and I'm done. I'm sick of it. I don't care whether Warren was an Indian or is an Indian or isn't an
That's
Indian.
a diversion from the
I
issue.
don't care.
Yep.
What I want to know is, what are you going to do? You know what this election comes down to with me, and I'm still waiting for someone to tell me. What are you going to do for me? And I don't mean me as an individual. I mean me as an American, me as a taxpayer. What are you going to do for me to make life a little bit easier in my waning years here? And all this negativity, and they're both guilty. Okay, they're both guilty of it. And I'm really sick of it. Some of those commercials, if I see them anymore, I'm going to scream.
Well, just wait until you get within the last week, then it's really going to ramp up.
Can you imagine the money that they're spending? You know how many, they say how they want to help people get jobs, and They need to help those people that are unfortunate and need food and so forth and so on. You know how much food you could buy with that money that they're spending on these commercials?
Well, just think of the money they're putting back into the economy. This is all money that's going into media. It's putting people to work. Television, media, all the stage hands that are helping erect the sets, the printing. I mean, just the mailings we do. All that goes, so all the money we're raising is going right back into the economy.
Between the two of them, they've spent something like $22 million.
Yeah.
That's not bad for a job that pays what, 250 grand a year?
Is it that high?
Yeah, well, I'm talking about with the frills that
Okay.
go with it. I'm talking.
Okay, yeah. Actually, no, I don't know what a congressman or US,
I think it's a
US
buck
senator
40,
makes.
a buck 60, or something
Is
like
it?
that.
Okay.
Then they get their health insurance and they get free postage and they get this that. And so you put it all together, it's probably a $250,000 package. You
Okay.
know, and how do you justify spending $20 million to win a $160,000 a year job? You can't justify that with me. Not if you're going to use that money to slam your opponent.
Well, I guess if you look at the cost for a TV commercial, what's it cost for a 30-second TV
Oh, it
commercial?
costs a lot of money.
$1 million? I mean,
Well, not quite.
just
But on a local level, running it on the Boston channels there, you're probably talking 10, 12 grand a shot a minute. Okay. I personally
I think it's going to be a lot higher than that.
I think at this point here, Mike, that everybody by now in that race has made up their mind who they're going to go for. If I didn't like one candidate or the other going into this race at this point, whatever they show for an ad now is not going to change anything. So now let's get down to what you really should be doing and should have been doing this whole time and in your debates, and that's talking about what you're going to do for America and how you're going to get there. I mean, even in the presidential debate last night, both of them avoided a couple of questions that were very frustrating. And by the way, the moderator was terrible.
I don't know. I think that it's a tough position.
My opinion.
No. But if you look at the moderator, think about this. You've got two aggressive personalities.
Yeah.
To keep two people in control,
Right.
get them to try to get the message. I think that's a tough situation.
So
for
what you need is an aggressive moderator.
Yeah, but
you don't pick someone because they're a pretty face.
But you don't want to stifle the debate between the two, because you're saying she did a bad job, but yet everyone's saying we enjoyed the debate and them going at it.
Yes, if you.
So it's a
but
tough
if you establish the ground rule and enforce it from the start,
But if
even as aggressive as those two personalities are, they would fall into.
But would that have hindered the interaction from the two of them that everyone seems to have liked?
Well, I think the format was terrible. I don't like the town meeting format. I think the rest of it was okay, and then maybe some of that bickering between the two. Well, I don't even call it bickering. Some of the attacks that they took on one another would be okay, and that was worth watching. Okay.
But see, if a tighter rein had been put on them, you might not have had the interaction between the two.
Well,
so by letting them go a little bit,
you can't lose control of
I know.
I mean, remember, as it was, they went 10 minutes over. It was supposed to be 90 minutes. They went 100.
But that's not bad. I mean,
Well, yeah, but you're on national TV. There are time frames, like we're running over our time frame
we
here.
have 2 minutes left.
Well, that's because he turned the clock back.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, so when you're on, having been on a radio personality for many years, time was everything. Your news come on at a certain time. Your commercials have to be run at a certain time.
But you know something, though, Joe. People are saying this is one of the most important elections that we are having in decades.
Oh, I agree.
If it takes a little bit more, if it takes 10 minutes longer out of the media time, so people can possibly hear an issue that they're interested in, for the good of the country or the good of the election and who they're going to choose. Let the media stations take a little loss.
Oh, I'm not depriving them the extra 10 minutes. My point on that is, had the moderator been in control,
Yeah.
without stifling the candidates.
But see, that's the tough.
I think it was more intimidation. I mean, I couldn't, even myself, as I can be a little.
Aggressive?
Yes, I think I would have a problem telling the President of the United States to sit down and shut up.
But you got to remember too, there was a lot of scrutiny even before the debate. During the day, a lot of the media outlets were talking about how there was a lot of restrictions being put on this moderator.
Right.
So because she had already made statements that she was going to try to have a stronger moderator, position herself as a stronger moderator, and there was resistance coming from both camps.
So what you do is you don't let your game plan out until then it's too late.
It's too late.
Too late. But anyways, Mike, let's just go forward and tell people that well, you want to tell people to vote.
Yep,
November
please
6th.
remember to go out November 6th. It's an important election. You have races from the President, U.S. Senate, Congress, State Senate. I don't think there's a rep race in this area. So
No, there isn't.
please go out and vote. Utilize that right.
Right, and remember we're going to have a new congressman now after this election.
Yes. Yeah.
Starting in January.
Even though Congressman McGovern is on the ballot, don't forget, please consider voting for him, even though he's unopposed, but he will be the new congressman for this area, for the entire 2nd Worcester District.
Right. And of course we have you on the ballot.
Yes.
And we definitely encourage people to come out and preserve what we got. And in my opinion, and it's not because I'm the host of the show, and this is our 37th show, by the way. We've gone past our third year. It's sincerely, we have a good thing. Let's keep that in consideration when we go to vote. If it ain't broken, I'm a strong believer. If it isn't broken, don't fix it. Mike, tell them how we can get a hold of you.
My office number is 617-722-1485, and my email is michael.moore@masenate.gov.
Okay, and of course, my telephone number is going across the screen as we speak. But most important of all, I'm around town all the time while Mike is down in Boston doing what he's supposed to be doing. And so if you need to get a hold of Mike, or you don't know quite how, or you don't remember how to get a hold of him, just grab me if you see me in the center. I'll promise you, especially this month here, been more than unusual number of requests to get a hold of the senator or the senator's office. I will provide you with whom you have to speak to and how the best way to go about it is and who you should talk to. And Shelley, your chief of staff, does a great job
Thank you. Thanks.
in taking these calls from these folks and directing them and helping them in whatever their issues may be. So on that note, be sure to vote. Thank you to the Historical Society. Thank you to all those that make this show possible. And again, have yourself a safe and happy Halloween.
Thank you.